The adventure artist Harry Finn had to travel light in the 1800s with a folio, graphite, ink, and just a few brushes. It was simply not practical to carry an easel and a lot of paints. I found this to be true as well, and while following in Harry's brushstrokes, I decided to do the same. So at each vantage point, I now paint with walnut ink. Its warm tones add a bit of nostalgia over today's manufactured inks. I am now frequently asked about the ink itself, indeed about its history, but more often, where can I get some? When I disclose that I make it myself, the obvious follow-up is, really? How? So come take a stroll with me, and I'll show you how you can make your own. There we go. So when you're looking for a black walnut, these are the leaves you're looking for. They usually turn yellow, kind of a pale green, at the first sign of fall, about the same time as the poplars do. There you go. Here's a good one. Starting to turn dark. They originally are a hardy green, and then they'll start to turn yellow. That, and then they'll start to turn black, and this is when we know they're just right to make walnut ink. But I highly recommend using gloves. They used to stain criminals' hands with walnut ink because it's very difficult to get off. So unless you really want to be caught walnut-handed, I'd use gloves when you're harvesting. You do have to be careful about this time because you might just get beamed by one. We know they're ripe, but they're dropping like this. Well, I think I got enough. Let's see what we can do. Turn this into a couple of jars of ink. I'll see you at the fire. Now remember, you only need the outer husk to make the ink. So leave the actual walnuts behind. The critters will appreciate it. I prefer to make the ink outside. It is quite a messy process and something you may not want to do in your own kitchen. Luckily, I have a fire pit by the falls, but more importantly, I have the old family cauldron. I do need to add a few stones so that I can raise it up so I won't smother out the fire. We will need to add just enough water to cover the walnut husk. Not too much, or the ink will be too thin. Break up the husk into the smallest pieces possible, and then boil for 4 to 5 hours. Of course, I like this because it gives me a good opportunity to have some fire time with my friends. But the secret ingredient is the iron oxide that binds with the tannins. This makes the ink richer and makes it last longer. In my case, this old cauldron adds it naturally. But if you're making this in a regular pot, the trick is to use, well, just a handful of rusting old nails. I let the contents cool overnight, and I've designated an old pot and this old ladle specifically for the process. We strain the liquids from the solids because the best ink comes from this sauce. Yesterday we boiled the brew down until it became a sludge resembling the devil's ragu. But I'm keeping the solids for one final process. I'm going to take an old cotton shirt and load it up with those solids and squeeze out the darkest ink. Walnuts were also used as a clothing dye, so I guess when I'm done, I'm going to have something resembling a 1800s tie-dye. Now that all the messiest work is done, let's take this inside and can it up. Okay, grab an apron and definitely don't wear anything white. Good old canning jars work best, but make sure they're sterile. We don't want to add any additional bacteria to the mix. Now cover the top of the jar with cheesecloth and secure it with a rubber band. We need to do one final straining because any particulate matter can clog your quill or muddy your brush. I like to use a wide mouth canning funnel to pour in the mixture, hopefully prevent too much mess. Careful now. Often after removing the cheesecloth from that rubber band, I'm reminded of why I wear an apron. The next step is very important for longevity. Add 2 teaspoons of spirits to the ink to prevent mold growth. Now, wine is not good enough. It's got to be at least 80 proof. As an additional deterrent, I also like to add about 6 cloves to the jar. They're a natural antimicrobial, and they'll keep anything funky from growing. Now just screw that lid on tight. Congratulations, you're done. As you can see, making your own ink can be quite rewarding. So I hope you and your brush find many artistic adventures together.